Greetings fair folk, this is Eat Fat Grow Slim and I've just bought a yoghurt maker. I've just read this wonderful book, Super Gut, by William Davis, and there's a particular type of yoghurt that he recommends making with a bacillus called Lactobacillus reuteri, and as well as others, but I want to test his claims. So I'm doing a bit of a deep dive into this. The first thing I've dived into is a bit disappointing. I mean, on the surface it looks absolutely fantastic. So let me talk about that. First, let me take slight exception with Dr. Davis. He calls it Lactobacillus reuteri. Well, it was discovered by Gerhard Reuter, so I'm going to insist it should be called Reuteri, not Reuteri. Anyway, that's a small point. I think I'm going to try and concentrate on Reuteri. Anyway, it's a bacillus that claims to be able to inhabit the upper gut to banish SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which is a disease which is quite problematic. Let me talk about this particular one aspect, which is very interesting. I want to talk about the intriguing idea, sometimes called the glow of health hypothesis. This idea comes from a 2013 study by Tatiana Levkovich and colleagues titled Probiotic Bacteria Induce a Glow of Health, which is super promising, isn't it? Now, in this experiment, researchers gave mice a probiotic bacterium called Lactobacillus reuteri. The results they reported were quite striking. The mice receiving the probiotic developed shinier fur with greater light reflectivity, as you can see in this image, and increased sebaceous gland activity, which mean their skin was producing more of the natural oils that condition hair and skin. When the researchers shaved patches of fur, the probiotic mice also showed faster hair regrowth, as you can see in this poor little shaved mouse control, and these patches that have regrown. Now, taken together, these traits gave the animals what the authors described as a visible glow of health. The researchers suggested that probiotic bacteria might influence the immune system, particularly through anti-inflammatory signaling pathways, and that these internal changes could show up externally as healthier skin and hair. And in the paper there's a wonderful proposed mechanism for all this, so it's quite well thought through. Now, on the surface this is all fascinating and it makes everyone want to run out and buy themselves a Lactobacillus reuteri starter kit. But when we look more closely at how the experiment was designed, there's an important question that arises. Now, the mice that received the probiotic were given yogurt containing Lactobacillus reuteri. Meanwhile, the control mice were simply fed the standard laboratory chow. All of the animals were fed ad libitum, which means they could eat as much as they want whenever they wanted. Now, the comparison wasn't really between probiotic yogurt and ordinary yogurt. It was between standard chow and standard chow, which was enriched with this probiotic yogurt. Instead, it was between mice that got yogurt and mice that didn't get yogurt, which begs the question, was it the probiotic nature of the yogurt, or was it just the yogurt that gave the glow of health? Now, this all matters because yogurt is itself a highly nutritious food, and it contains high quality proteins like casein, whey and dairy fats, vitamins, minerals, and such as calcium, and a range of fermentation products. However, let's imagine we gave the mice just those things without the probiotic bacteria. Would they have fared as well as the mice with just a standard laboratory chow. So what are you comparing here? So any of these could potentially influence things like skin quality, hair growth and or overall body condition. This brings us to the purpose of a well-designed control group in a scientific experiment. A control group is meant to be identical to the treatment group in every way except for one factor that you're trying to test. That way, if you observe a difference between the two groups, you can reasonably attribute that difference to the factor you're studying. In this case, if the goal is to test whether the probiotic bacterium itself causes the glow of health, then the control group should ideally have received everything except that bacterium. In other words, some sterile yogurt. Now, so a stronger experiment design might have given the control mice ordinary yogurt without the probiotic, or perhaps heat-treated or sterilised version of the same yogurt where the bacteria had been killed. Okay, that way both groups would be getting the same dairy nutrition, the same calories and the same food matrix, with only one difference being whether the probiotic bacteria were alive and present. Sadly, that did not happen. Now, without that kind of match control, it becomes difficult to separate the two possibilities. Did the mice glow with health because of the probiotic bacteria, or did they simply benefit from the extra nutrition provided by the yogurt itself? So while the study is certainly interesting and raises a provocative hypothesis about microbes and visible health, the experimental design means we have to interpret the results with some caution. Massive caution, actually. It's a great reminder that in science, the quality of the control group is absolutely crucial. If the control group isn't carefully matched to the treatment, it becomes much harder to know exactly what caused the effect you're seeing. So what can we take from this study? What we can take from the study is if you feed mice probiotic yogurt, they get a glow of health. What you don't know is that if you were to have fed the mice ordinary yogurt, whether they'd still get the same glow. And you learn that if you feed the same sort of mice with a standard chow, which is actually chopped up oats and corn and wheat and stuff like that, where that they don't, I mean, obviously that they don't get the glow. Now, the other big problem, of course, they're mice and they're not humans. So, you know, while I admire Dr. William Davies and think his book's a real eye-opener and worth looking at, his enthusiasm, I think, has not taken account of this particular study. Now, the book is absolutely chock-a-block full of other references. It's going to take me ages to get through them all. I probably won't be able to get through them all, but I'm hoping I'm going to find something a bit more reliable. I think perhaps just bad luck that I found this particular study, which isn't useful, actually isn't useful at all. Right, so thankfully that wasn't too long. I tried to make this as short as possible because I'm going to go on to the next thing, which is to assess the increase in oxytocin that these bacteria are supposed to give us. So stay tuned for more.